Shalom, shalom. First, I want to start off by giving all honor, praises, and infinite glory due to Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rachak Kodash, which is the true name of the Heavenly Father, His only begotten Son, whom the world ignorantly calls God in Jesus Christ. I want to give double honors unto the elders, apostles, and bishops of GMS Great Millstone, who rule well, teach, and edify. And peace and blessings unto you, sincere Akim. While Akwat in this household of faith, my name is Yeshaya from the GMS Arizona Church, and I want to make an edifying video. This truth, man, is that straight gate. It's like the scriptures tell you in Second Esdras. Right, it's like a path that only one man can go at a time, and then there's a great water and then fire on either side, man. And as we're heading into the Passover, I know for a fact, in terms of my walk, that before the Passover, through the Spirit, a lot of the ugliest things get addressed about me, man. A lot of the battles that I've been trying to put off, a lot of the demons I've been, too hesitant to address, the Spirit of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, call Allah Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, reveals them out, man. It gets brought out. It's ugly, but that's that leaven. And with all that being said, man, let's get Baruch chapter 4 and verse 25. And this is my children, suffer patiently the wrath that has come upon thee from Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, for thine enemy hath persecuted thee, but surely thou shalt see his destruction and shalt tread upon his neck. And verse 26, my delicate ones have gone rough ways and were taken away as a flock caught of the enemies, man. Going those rough ways in His truth, man. Going those rough ways in the Lord. Alright? The scriptures tell you in Sirach chapter 2, and starting at the top, if thou comest to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for temptation. Preparing your soul for temptation is all kinds of things. Because eventually you might have to die behind this. And if you ain't dying behind this, while the time that you're in this life, the time that you are serving the Lord, you gonna be going through hell. Okay, you gonna go through suffering. And that's all a part of the course of carrying the cross. Carrying the cross isn't meant to be some lightweight, man. It's not meant to be, it's not a feel-good doctrine. Okay, we're not here to fucking be successful in life. We're not here to have the fatness of this land. We're paying our judgment, man. And we're doing the will of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. And that's enough, man. Because we really should be destroyed. As the scriptures talk about in Job 11 and verse 6, the Lord exacted upon thee less than what thine iniquity deserveth. Less than what thine iniquity deserveth, man. Jake should be just totally, killed for all the wickedness that they do. And you can get that as an example from the tribe of Benjamin in the land of Canaan. The Lord smote that whole tribe of Benjamin using the rest of the tribes of Israel to where the tribe only had 600 men left, or 600 or 500 Benjamites left in the land of Canaan. That's not a light number, man. I mean, you've taken down a whole, species of people, man, a whole sect of people. Looking at modern days, man, look at the tribe of Gad. You hardly ever see Gad. Gad's heavy into idol worship, heavily, man, and it's stupid. The idols they worship is just retarded. And I can say that firsthand because, on my mother's side, they all Gad. And the things my grandmas used to tell me, it's just flat out retarded. Okay? And the Lord, you hardly see Gad, man. Esau threw him on these reservations, and shit, you hand a nigga a gun most of the time, they'll kill themselves. And you see that in that tribe, man. My family used to be huge on my mother's side, man. We talking about 100 members. Now I could probably count them on my hands and feet, man. Less than 20. And that's all due to suicide. That's due to death. That's due to moving away and totally going off the grid. You don't even know whether they dead or alive. You know, they was dropping like flies, even in C-19, man. A few of them died then. Cancers and old age, all the grandmothers, they used to live deeply into the 90s. But they all fell out in the early 2000s. You know? And that just shows you the judgment of Yahweh Shem Yahushua. And with all that being said, the fact that we're called into this truth and we understand it, man, we got to be, you know, like my mother always used to tell me growing up, man, you got to count your blessings. Because this path is going to get rough. This path is never going to be easy, you know. And I'm a young brother myself, man. I ain't been I haven't crossed the line for a long time. And in this last year, I grew 10 years, you know, saying that with all humility. I mean, and that's just what the spirit of Yahweh Shem Yahushua will do to you. Man, those chastisements will give you a wake-up call, man. Wake the hell up. Understand what's going on. This ain't jokes. This ain't games no more, man. The scriptures tell you in the NLT, the physical punishment, you know, turning away sins, roughly paraphrasing, man. And that's what we go through in this truth. We go through some ugly shit. This is Sirach chapter 18. Where was it at? Was it 12? Here we go. In verse 20, it says, before judgment, examine thyself. In the day of visitation, thou shalt find mercy. Humble thyself before thou shalt be sick. In the time of sins show repentance. And that just goes into the spirit that we're dealing with right now, man. We have to examine ourselves going before this Passover, man. We have to think about all those things that we haven't addressed, man. We have to think about all these things in the truth that you're ultimately going to have to face one way or another. You know, what inspired me to make this video is I was feeling real heavy, man. You know, we shall have trouble in the flesh, man. I'm just getting some help. And I like to go take a walk whenever I get help, man. I'm over here on the Tempe Town Lake taking a walk. And I was kicking a rock down the road, man. And I was kicking it in the road and it was going smooth at first. And then I got to a point where there was dirt over here, there was grass over here. And I actually started accidentally kicking the rock in the grass, man. And that totally diverted my course of kicking that rock. It was kind of difficult. Now reimagine that within carrying your cross. Do you think carrying your cross, you're always gonna have the perfect, you know, level floor, you know, nice soft grass to walk your cross off, you know? Hell no, you're gonna have to deal with some jagged rocks you're gonna have to walk on. You're gonna have to go uphill, you're gonna have to go downhill. You know what I'm saying? You think Yahweh Shai was carrying his cross and it was just perfect level ground the whole time? When he was carrying the cross? No, he needed another man who came and helped him to carry that cross. And even at that, it was still real difficult. It was a difficult path for him to carry that cross in a physical term. You know? And although we're not out here actually, you know, carrying our cross in a physical way, you know, like there's not a physical cross on our back, you know, mentally and spiritually there is. You know? Let's get a precept on that. All right, here we go. It's Matthew chapter 16 and verse 24. And it says, and then Yahweh Shai said unto his disciples, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. You know, a part of denying yourself, man, is totally just, is that process of rebirth, man. You know, when you come into this truth, man, you take a sharp 180. And you turn your ways towards righteousness instead of unrighteousness, man. You got to deny yourself the lust and the love and the pride of this life. And now you have to solely follow Yahweh Shem Yahushua with your whole heart and sincerity. When you follow in the Lord, man, you're no longer thinking and sowing to the flesh. As it says in, I think it's Colossians or Galatians 6 and 9. No, I might have quoted that wrong, but the precept is he that soweth to the flesh reapeth corruption. You know, if you're constantly having failure in a certain thing that you're doing, you know, sometimes it's smart to draw back and, are you sowing to the flesh or are you sowing to the spirit? You know, if you're constantly trying to chase women and shit and you ain't having no luck chasing these women, and the one woman you do get, you get caught up in a bad situation, were you sowing to the flesh or sowing to the spirit, for real? You know, say you drink alcohol and every time you drink alcohol, you damn near black out. Or every time that you drink alcohol, you getting scares, damn near getting DUIs or, there's all kinds of evil things that can happen with that, and it's constantly happening to you. Sometimes it's, really you need to take a step back using that spirit of discretion and see, am I sowing to the flesh or the spirit? Because reaping corruption, it looks like that at times. It could look ugly like that. It could look stupid like that. It's going to have you looking like an idiot, man. Because you sowing to the spirit and power Yahweh Shem Yahushai, the Lord will gift you with the cookie here and there, but it's not going to be all the time or you're going to be able to have your cookies, man. We're not men with hands inside the cookie jar. We men that are literally at spiritual war right now. And another precept is 2 Timothy chapter 2. And it says, thou therefore, my son, be strong in the grace that is in Hamashiach Yahushai. We're in a grace period right now. And it says, and the things that thou hast heard of me among many witnesses, the same commit thou to faithful men who shall be able to teach others. And we're supposed to be examples unto the world, examples unto brothers, man. You come into these law, statutes, and commandments, you've been rehearsing it, and especially if you're teaching it, you have to be an example of an example, man. We have to be, we can't be cursing Jake out, can't be saying Pookie and Ray Ray this, and whole time you doing the same shit. You just disguising it behind a cloak of righteousness, saying that it's justified. The scriptures talk about it in Proverbs chapter 14 and verse 12. It says, there is a way that is good unto a man, but the end thereof is death. Scriptures also say the heart is deceitful above all things, and we know that word heart goes into the word la'ab, which means your mind. Your mind is deceitful above all things. You cannot trust your mind, man. Your mind's interlinked with the flesh. Your mind yearns for the things that the flesh kind of pops up into it, man. That's why we have to be tapped into the spirit to essentially overcome that flesh with the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. To use the spirit of the Lord as an accessory, like that Ephesians the 6th chapter spirit. Putting on the whole armor of a Mashiach. You putting on the breastplate, the head, the headgear, the feet, the sword, man. You're really girding up for war, and that's the type of things that we're at. So when you carrying your cross and its truth, you cannot expect it to be, peachy keen the whole damn time. You can't expect it to be, a straight, nice, flat surface with, good buoyancy so it don't hurt your kneecaps. We're going to be going up and downhill through jagged rocks, through all kinds of stuff, man. We're going to have to endure death in this thing, man. And this may very likely be the last Passover. So all your dirty drawers and all your shit that you scared to face, man, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, pray on it. Try to address those things and escape the shackles of sin, man. We have to be slaves to Yahweh Shem Yahushai, servants of the Lord. No longer interlinked with this world. It says, thou therefore endure hardness as a good soldier of Yahushua Mashiach. No man that warreth entangleth himself with the affairs of this life, that he may please him who have chosen him to be a soldier. We're trying to please the Lord with our actions. How are you going to please the Lord if you're doing nigga shit? You can't please the Lord just dwelling in wickedness, man. The scriptures talk about that in Romans. You cannot please the Lord in his flesh, man. Reaping to the flesh. It is a pleasant thing for when the Lord sees you reading. It's a pleasant thing when the Lord sees you burning incense to him and praying to him and being spiritual. When you anoint yourself, man. It's a pleasant thing to the Lord when you see you doing that brotherly love, that charity, man. But it's not a pleasant thing when he sees you running around like a man. Let me take a second. I'm trying to take that vulgarity down, but when he sees you running around like an idiot, man, sowing to the flesh, doing all kinds of dumb things, man, being proud, you know, the Lord has no pleasure when he sees a guy doing those things, especially when he knows better. The Lord knows your heart. The Lord knows your knowledge. He's giving you the spirit of it. He knows exactly how much faith, fear, knowledge, and understanding you have in these scriptures. The Lord knows your heart. So when he sees you still doing the wrong thing, knowing how much, that you have the ability to do the right thing, but you chose to do the wrong thing, is a displeasure to the Lord, and it's also disrespect. Think about how your mom put a t-shirt on your back and food on the table, but then you still don't want to listen to her and get your shit straight. All right, think about how the Lord gave you a life, and yet you're still going to disrespect him by doing wickedness. We have to really be, thoughtful about these type of things, man. It's all through mercy that we're even in this truth. There's people in this life that's just bugged out. There's people that's lame, man. Shit, what if you was missing a couple chromosomes, man? It could have happened to any of us. What if you was mauled up, man? I got patients I deal with on a daily basis. They ain't even got two legs to walk on. Just to put them in a chair, they got to get pent up with a Hoyer lift. Ain't that something? And you know what chair they're getting on? The chair to get their kidney treatment because they got 2 failed kidneys. We in so much mercy, man, and we have to respect the Lord and love the Lord. Even unto death, because this life of ours is not ours. If you truly in this thing, man, you sincere. Romans chapter 14 and verse 8. And this reads, for whether we live unto the Lord, or whether we die unto the Lord. Whether we live or die, we are the Lord's. And the life that you live in this truth unto the Lord, cannot be a life of wickedness, man. Of niggotry, essentially, man. Just doing the wrong thing. The scriptures tell you in Thessalonians, abstain from all presence of evil. So you can't be in this truth but reneging all the time, man. And we have our lapses, man. We have our lapses in judgment. We have our slips and falls, man. But at the end of the day, we just trying to be better. And a heavy lesson that goes into that, just throwing that out there, is this past Arizona's midweek sit down with that Elder Kassad, man. Had me thinking, man. Real talk. It was real edifying on that, making sure your heart's right spirit, man. Mercy and all that. And it's only going to get heavier from here. Because after the Passover, we already know comes destruction. That could be destruction of your own spirit. The Lord could take that spirit off you, and that could be it for you. We hoping that the Lord passes over us, and the Lord blesses us with more faith, fear, and knowledge in Yahweh Hashem Yahushua, so that we may endure to the very end. Because if you endure just half the way, you still failed. We have to endure to the very end. But we'll finish out this Matthew 16 and close out. It says, for whosoever shall save his life shall lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. And a part of losing your life for the Lord's sake is putting away this flesh and putting away wickedness and putting away your wants in the world, man. A lot of bros could have chose different ways in life, man. A lot of bros could have chose different careers that would have... Hello. Yeah, they're doing some boat racing. A lot of bros could have chose certain careers and, life paths that would have obstructed them from being in this truth, man. But they forsook it and continue to endure this cross, man. But with all that being said, I pray this lesson was well said and edifying. Endure that cross. When I last give all honor, praise, and infinite glory to Yahweh, B'Shem Yahushua, B'Shem Rakakodah, Shalom.